We are rolling. Old-fashioned Hollywood podcast.
What's up, guys?
Yeah. Drinking Macallan 12 years.
And
Highland Scotch malt whiskey.
You keep liquors around pretty often, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just drinking water. I usually have a little bit of a collection of alcohols, but it's left over from like parties we do once in a while.
Yeah. Well, I am an American male, so...
He sure is.
Yeah.
Right.
American male, my steak and whiskey.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't really buy steak.
He identifies as a male. He wasn't born that way. It doesn't matter, though. We still call you a male, though, right?
Cisgendered male, something.
Fucking typical cisgender. Thinking you fucking know everything.
Quit
sorry.
mansplaining my gender identity to me, Larry.
Do
please.
men mansplain to each other?
I guess it's possible.
You know what? I've been accused of mansplaining before when I was like, I'm not talking down to you.
You're alpha mansplaining to me because you're trying to be the alpha in this conversation, and it's
I think it's by weight.
Yeah.
I've been accused of mansplaining before. I actually think it can be a thing. Like when somebody's like, well, listen, little lady or whatever. But like when I was dating a girl and she's like, don't mansplain this. I'm like, I'm literally telling you what the movie's about. I don't know that I'm excited about it. I don't know how I'm mansplaining anything.
Yeah. Just because you're a man and you're explaining something.
Yeah, that's not fair. Not everything's condescending. Why?
Yeah, right. Well, I feel like you're being condescending to me right now.
No, I am now.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
I'm definitely trying to right now. I'm talking about in the other
Right.
situation.
So, our weekly Corona series. This is back to our original format, and we're still semi-quarantined.
When did we watch Star Trek? Was that a week ago?
That was last week. Yeah.
God, man, that seems like a few days ago to me. This whole the concept of fucking time during this is gone.
Days of the week out
blurry,
the window,
dude.
and
It's a mess.
Yeah.
I felt myself like I'm ready to go back to the office now. And it was like Saturday morning or Sunday morning. And I'm like, I used to not be able to wait till the weekend. Now I'm like, they all feel the same. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Strange
Here we are. I thought, one of the things that I just had actually a job recently. That's why I was talking about us being like semi-quarantined is even though like 95% of Hollywood is shut down, there's still some productions that are still going, like obviously things like CNN and MSNBC News things are still shooting.
But no like narrative stuff though, right?
No. This was so
insane.
Yeah. So I was I was hired to come on and do Steadicam for a couple of pre-recorded church events for this kind of mega church down in Orange County. They did a Good Friday and an Easter service, and so normally they have hundreds of people will show up in their building, and this time because of the coronavirus, like, well, let's not have hundreds of people show up, let's just have like 10 people
50.
show up, and we'll do the service, record it, and then have it online for the people to watch. But I'm an atheist. And so
what?
Yeah, I know. Huh? It got me thinking about the morals and ethics in our industry and other people's industry, and like how far would I go as far as like a job that hired me to do something? How much would I compromise my beliefs and my integrity, I guess, for
especially during times when work is scarce right now.
Well, there's
where
that
you have
too.
to take work, right?
Yeah. I mean, because I've done, I've done camera for movies that, were terrible scripts that I wasn't particularly proud to be a part of the production in that sense. We're like, no, this is a terrible movie.
You probably don't want to name them for me, do you?
No, I won't. Don't do that.
Just my stuff.
Force Awakens. No, just kidding. I wish. But then there's other things like doing church services. Me, like I have a personal belief about like how I feel about churches being an entity that bilks gullible people out of their money, and
especially
things like
a tax-free entity.
Yeah.
That also.
So there's those kind of things, but then there's also stuff like, hey, what if somebody said, hey, we're gonna shoot a Trump ad for 2020, and we need Steadicam, would you come out and do that? And one of the things that got me thinking about it was last year they had that film called Two Popes, and it was Anthony Hopkins
and John, what's his face?
Cleese?
No.
Anyways, but
really the best dude. I love the guy too.
Right.
I can't think. Jonathan. price.
Right. So yeah, so it got me thinking like, well, what if I was hired to do that? Because I mean, I didn't watch the movie because one of the reasons why I didn't watch the movie was looking at the promo materials and the trailers I saw. It didn't look like, oh, they're gonna tackle.
No, I agree.
Like, how corrupt they
I had
are.
no
with
interest.
The child sex scandals and stuff
Kristen's
like that.
It's great. I'm like, what are you talking? Those guys are like, they cover pedophilia.
Yeah,
I don't want to watch them being chummy pals. What are you talking about?
And so it's like there's that one line that's easy to draw. Say, oh, I'm not going to give them my money to go see it.
It was easy.
But what if I was hired?
Yeah. What about them giving you their money?
Right. And it's like, oh, this is my like, and especially
Yeah.
in the sense like, oh, this is a big budget film and it's going to be.
He took the money.
Yeah, right. But I was never I was never given that option.
Right. But still, it's a moral. It's still applicable to what your situation was with the churches. Of course, that's not as like shooting a promo for a church isn't you're a piece of shit by default.
Well, I hope not. I mean, but how much like what churches are.
I said that,
what,
and then I thought I think the average person, of course, in America's a pretty religious country.
Yeah.
The average person would be like, oh, what's the harm in for a church? But then when you think about it, you're like, listen, I believe like that the reason gays had to fight for so long for rights came from the fact that so many of us got our beliefs from something that wasn't based or rooted in fact or objectivity or reason, and like now I'm promoting it or I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like it's not as innocent as it seems. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what if anybody who's out there who's Christian and says, oh well, there's nothing wrong with it. I said, oh yeah, well I'm going to shoot a promo for the Church of Satan, or I'm going to
gasp.
Yeah. Or something like that. Like it's going to be a promo for this other religion that promotes
or Islam, even Islam.
Islam.
I mean, I know it's not like I think Christians who say there's nothing wrong with it. You said, well, for Islam, I think a lot of them would pause right there. You know. Or if you said for atheism, I bet you bet their asses, or you bet your ass. Well, you bet either one's ass, but someone's ass that if it was for atheism, a lot of those people who said there's nothing wrong would suddenly pause.
Right. Yeah. And
the record screech.
Yeah. Or it's a promo video for this, white Aryan neo-Nazi group or something like that. It's like, look, that's a pretty easy. That's like.
It's like black and white.
Yeah, that's it's easy to say on that one side of the line,
right.
And then, but as we get closer to that line, it's like, oh, this is just a
Well, life is a series of grays. I mean, as you know,
sure, right.
And I think sometimes, I don't. Okay, so this is something I wrestle with too. I think every decent person does. The fact that you sometimes wallow or spend time in the gray, and then later reflect upon it and wonder, did I go too close to the line? Did I cross the line? What's important to me? What's not important to me? I'm not saying to use that as an excuse for doing whatever, whenever for the money, but I'm saying it's normal for decent people to have these philosophical. I sound so Dr. Phil right now, but to reflect on these things is normal. I think for and healthy for an intelligent mind. Life's not black and white, so we're going to make the wrong calls sometimes. I don't know, man. I don't think. I mean, how do you feel about it? You did it, right? You shot for them.
Yeah. I did the one for the church for the Easter service, and I want to say that it's because work is scarce right now, but that's probably not the truth. I would say that if work was normal and these people called me up, I mean, and part of it is the production company that I work with. It's a production company that I've done other commercial type work for.
Mm-hmm.
We did a makeup ad. We did a thing for that comedian Fluffy Iglesias, and so
I saw him once. That's cool.
So it's that to me was an automatic sort of factor in the sense of like this is a production company that I've worked with before and have an established relationship. They treat me well, they pay me well, they pay me on time.
But you're endorsing something you don't believe in even still.
In a way, yeah. I am. I'm contributing to that. Right.
You're one of the cogs in the machine that's endorsing something you don't believe in.
Yeah. I mean, it was a church service, so in that sense, it wasn't like a commercial. It was like this is just a service, so
it's a very, very light gray.
Yeah, very light gray. Yeah. So and you could look at this. Am I just now here justifying what I've done for my 7 pieces of silver or whatever it is?
It's interesting, and I think before we were recording, you brought up, you could up the stakes on it a little bit. What if you're a Bernie supporter and you're offered money to work on a Trump ad, which you brought that up a little bit ago, and I know somebody, and this was 4 years ago, so I'm gonna jump back. I believe it was Trump versus Hillary. Who was it the 4 years before that?
Yeah. Trump versus Hillary.
Yeah, it was Trump versus Hillary, and a friend of mine out here in LA was part of event planning, or like not a campaigner. She's super like aggressively liberal,
Right.
like LA liberal.
Yeah.
And she was working for the Conservative Party, and she's like, oh my God, she's like, I felt so gross. We're planting minorities in the front rows. You know what I mean? She's like, we're trying to make it look like there are more people there than there are. We're
Right.
trying to make it look more diverse than it is. She was such a part of the machine that she felt so horrible about it later.
Yeah.
You know, that's a thing. I mean, I don't know. You know, we're in a country where, I mean, but you know what though? We're making this about church and politics, but like, people every day work for companies they don't believe in.
Yeah.
And the end goal isn't like just to get my company's tissues out there instead of the competitors' paper towels. Like, all we're doing really is making somebody richer. Like,
Right.
that's all we're really doing. And I think of all the actors who move out here to want to be actors in LA, and where do most of them land? Commercials. And I came out here
lucky.
because I was in love with movies, and I came out here and I made, like, some of them make a good living on commercials, as you
Right.
know, our friends do. And like, they're just selling Geico, dude. Like, I'm a face who stands there and tells you to eat Doritos.
Right.
Like,
Well,
that's how I get paid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, but I think there's a difference between saying, "Oh, I'm doing a commercial for Doritos," which doesn't inspire me artistically. It isn't why I came out here. Than doing for something, than doing a commercial or a movie or some other promo
Something
material
you're directly opposed
that you're
to.
opposed to, like
For sure. I understand.
yeah.
Different shades of gray. Absolutely. And it's a much
right.
darker.
Is this like
Yeah.
I'm doing it for, you know, I'm after they had the huge oil spill in the Gulf. I want to say it was 8 to 10 years ago or something like that. Huge freaking oil spill in the Gulf. BP, British Petroleum.
I remember. This is a while back.
Yeah.
Like 10 years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
And so BP had committed all this money to clean up and stuff like that.
Right.
They actually spent more money on commercials and PR
To save
stuff.
face?
Yeah, to save
Yeah.
face and make themselves look good. There were ads all over
Yeah.
YouTube and all over the internet and on TV. Ads about how they were cleaning everything up
Then there was more money putting that into the cleanup itself.
than actually the cleanup itself. And
Yeah,
it's
is
like
that really even shocking in art? I mean,
right, yeah. So I mean, it's like, so if you're part of that camera crew that's doing those, you're out there actively, you know, part of this sort of deception, and you know, there's people who work, you know, what's it called there in New York, all the advertisements and stuff like that. You know, people who work in the ad agencies, a Mad Men, that era, and stuff like
totally.
that. You know, it's
yeah.
like, you know, people's whole industry is about that kind of stuff, you know.
sure.
And I think there's definitely a difference between, I came out here to Hollywood, or I came into acting in the film industry because I wanted to tell stories and science fiction, or
Of course,
whatever
not the
it
exact
is.
same thing.
Right,
I was
right.
just saying that everybody's doing something they're not that into for money.
Sure,
But
sure.
yours is just more. You're diametrically opposed to that. The message of the thing you're doing for money.
Yeah.
Which is like, for sure, taking it another step. I mean,
Yeah.
I think people have. I don't even think people need to be working on. I don't think a religious person needs to work on a non-religious thing to feel bad. I think people feel bad when they just go, "What am I doing anyway?"
Right.
But yeah, I hear you, man. I don't know. I mean, you know, the whole moral thing. I mean, it's kind of a pivot. But okay, so last night, I don't know, was it with you? Who was it? I was with somebody. I was tagged to a post. A friend of mine from work tagged me that the one of the Domino's in LA, pizza, is closing down after a bunch of the workers tested positive for coronavirus. And she tagged me because she knows those are my accounts. So I'm like, Monday morning, I'm going to call and check in. And then we realized that Friday, one of our employees was just there for service, you know.
Shit.
And then we all kind of congregate in the office, and there's this moral dilemma of like, we're all still going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, but we're all starting to have this kind of like internal debate right now about like, to what extent do we do this?
Right. Well, there's the moral and the ethical dilemma, and then there's the practical. Do you yourself want to get sick?
Totally.
Dilemma,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's not even a moral ethical question.
And even beyond
like,
that is, do I want to get sick? Do I want to get my friends sick?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess what I was saying to wrap that all up into one thing, whether it was you talking about what you were talking about, or me talking about people working for things they don't believe in, or us talking about working when there's a coronavirus out, is like the things we do for money, dude.
Yeah.
Like, are we ever always like, this is great? We just look at our bank account and go, okay, I can pay rent.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then begin week 2.
Yeah.
And I like my company. I mean, I do. I especially the LA branch, but this is definitely this is an internal thing. I think this is a thing a lot of people at a lot of companies are asking themselves right now, for sure. Like,
well, I mean, you guys are truly doing God's work. I think you can say that without
totally. As a guy who, I take that means a lot from somebody who doesn't think there is a God. So that's not a compliment Scotty would give off it. Yeah, we are. We're out there doing the Lord's work. That's the way I see it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't wear a mask. I trust with what I'm doing. He's gonna take care of me.
Right. Yeah.
I do the old spit and shake, spit in the hand, shake the hand, close the deal.
Yeah, that's how close the deal, right? Yeah.
Come on, the old way.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old kiss on the mouth.
Yeah. Don't go offending me now. If you don't shake my hand on the deal, I'm gonna walk
Bill,
away.
I'm gonna consider it a no clothes. Come on, get in here. Everybody, get in here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you, man. Other than well, look at it this way. You only went once. Had you gone more than once?
Twice.
I know, I'm teasing you. You went back. If you went more than once, I probably wouldn't be your friend anymore. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, you sold out for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about it? Is it really a thing that's eating away at you or no?
I mean, not really, because I took their money. No.
Get out of here. It's horrible.
No, it's more, I mean, it's I guess it's that like slippery slope kind of thing, and thinking about that, it's like, well, the next time they call me for the this, that, or the other, like, obviously, I mean, I after the first time going there, one of the reasons why I did accept to go back is because I didn't get an icky feeling from the church. That was the thing too,
That's important, because I'll tell you one thing. I just remembered my brother did some work for a church where he had to fly. I'm probably going to get this wrong. I want to say to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And they were doing like, not missionary work, but like helping the poor.
Missionary position work?
Yeah, they were doing that. Yeah. That was mandatory if you wanted to get food. No, but they were doing they were helping the poor and feeding them and stuff and taking them and sheltering them. But you had to, those people, like, at first it sounded amazing. My brother was calling me from down there going, this is horrible. They make them like vow to, believe in God and be a part of the church and the system, or they won't let them in.
To get them a sandwich.
He's like, and they're pressuring us too, like the crew. Wow. So, there are different degrees of that stuff. I mean, obviously that's not something you faced, but that does exist where everything's chummy, then it's like, look, are you one of us or not? It's not like you were dealing with that. It was something like more of a regular business transaction.
One of us.
One of us. Yeah.
No, it was very,
with a smile.
Yeah. It was laid back. There wasn't, I mean, cause I've done church services before, like way early in my career. When I first moved down to Southern California, I got hired to do some videography for some Pentecostal churches, and those are the Holy Roller ones.
Yeah.
I may have told you those stories.
I have family that was at Pentecostal. Man.
Yeah, and those, like, I really got a scuzzy feeling from because it was like they would do the stuff where they get the pastor, the preacher, whatever, is giving his little sermon, and the guys are on the guitar, on the bass guitar, and the drum kit, and
the Seinfeld theme.
Yeah. And it gets everything gets worked up, and then the people start tripping, and they start running around.
It's like casting a spell over people. It works.
Yeah,
it works.
Like
it puts you in that.
Yeah.
There's talking in tongues. There's all this
weird
stuff.
dancing and fainting, and also laying of hands and all that crap, and about half the room goes down, the other half of the room is like catching people, and they're praying and stuff like that. And
you were part of productions on
those? I was doing camera work. Yeah.
Oh well, you were the reverend. You were the pastor.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Dancing around.
Yeah. And
green suit.
But then immediately after all the craziness happens, and then they start bringing people back to life. The next thing they do is boom, pass on the collection plate.
Oh, for sure.
Every single time.
It's like a show.
Yeah. No,
well,
it's
like an interactive show.
Right.
Because it does. It's like an emotional roller coaster. It pulls you in. And that's what. Dude,
to have that like religious experience, and then they say now you got to plant that seed
because you believe it's real now. Now you're like, well, that wouldn't have worked if there's not a God.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, yes, it would.
Yeah.
That's what people do.
It worked because you believed.
Yeah, you believe it. You'll see it. You'll feel it. We were probably in high school. I went to a Pentecostal church. I don't know why we went. It's where my grandparents were going at the time. And just one Sunday, I don't know if it was Easter or what, but one Sunday we went with our family and our cousins, and it was the only time I saw. I mean, I went to church a lot as a kid. It was the only time when I saw like my grandpa with his hands up in the air shaking, and the Reverend had his hand on my grandpa's head, and it made me so uncomfortable because that wasn't the grandpa I knew. Does that make sense? Like I could never imagine my grandpa going along with that, but I saw they've been going to this place. I didn't know,
Yeah.
Once I saw that, it made me so deeply uncomfortable because I was like, what are you doing? Why are you playing along? Why are you letting this work? You know what I mean? It made me, because I saw him as a strong guy. And I don't mean to say you're a piece of shit if it works, but I just mean I knew him as that wasn't how he believed. So to see that, I was like, whoa, it like stayed with me for a while. I still could see it in my head, What's funny, and this is a little bit of an aside, but not crazy. Even though I'm not a believer, I have moments that mean a lot to me. I remember I was at the hospital. My grandma was in there. They were looking at her, determining whether or not she was going to have open heart surgery. This was back when she was still alive. She was already, I think she's in her 80s, because she lived into her 90s. And my grandpa was there, and one of the family members was like, just kind of keep an eye on him. He's really stressing out, And Grandpa and I walked down the hallway in the hospital, and there's little churches inside, and it's imprinted into my brain. I'm standing in the doorway of like that little chapel, and he's a mess, right? And I'm just watching my grandpa up there, and he's praying. He's sitting in the front row. And it's still imprinted into my brain as like a beautiful moment, even though I don't believe. Does that make sense? It meant a ton to me. It still moved me.
Right.
And I don't think it's the same thing with, I don't mean to go deep, but when my mom was sick and she was passing away slowly, we went to chemo. I took her to chemo, and then again we stopped at a church, and even the whole way she'd be like, "You don't believe?" Like she was kind of trying to pull it out of me. I'm like, "I don't want to talk about this right now," Yeah. But she wasn't mad at me or anything. But we stopped at the church, and I just have this moment. I just remember seeing her. It's almost the same thing, sitting at the front row of a little chapel. Those moments still are kind of beautiful and sacred to me in a way, without me believing that there's a supernatural force behind them.
Yeah.
And so when somebody's doing the hands-on stuff, or they're getting worked up, or they one thing is when somebody says, I had to go pray on this last night to make a decision. And I go, well, I didn't have to pray to make a decision. But I had to sit down and reflect and try to think of it from all angles. It still works.
Right.
Without thinking you're talking to God. It baffles my mind that people think that you have to believe in order for those things to occur or
right.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Sorry to talk for so long on that, but
I mean, but I get that too. This idea of having memories and that are kind of tied to religion and tied to that past.
But the religion part's not the special part,
right.
Yeah.
But there's still that sort of emotional connection you have. I mean, one of the most impactful childhood memories I have is, after my grandmother passed away, and I remember being in the church and the funeral and the family around and everything like that, and there was no other context in which somebody dying and having a funeral type service, having any of that, there was no context that I had that was outside of religion. It was all tied together.
It's all in that, yeah, totally. It's all in that bubble, no matter what.
Right. And so there was no other way to process it. And I remember, my aunt saying, "Oh, it's just like, she said something weird about it being like a turtle in a shell, and it was like, it's just the shell is just your body, and the rest of
the soul or whatever.
Yeah, it goes away, and and
that's not what happens when a turtle dies.
Ignoring
it's a horrible analogy.
Ignoring the fact that you can't remove a turtle from its shell.
Or it dies, right?
Fine. But I get what she was saying, and thanks, Aunt Barbara.
She made that way worse.
it rips it out and
Yeah,
the blood goes
just imagine taking a turtle, flipping it on its back, and then ripping the.
Yeah, right.
That's where your family is.
Yeah,
now.
that's what Gram is.
Isn't that hell?
Yeah, right. But I mean, in that context, that's how I understood it. And as I don't know, I'm 9 years old or something, 10 years old, it made sense or something, But
I remember when my stepdad's mom died, especially my grandma, like my step grandma, and I remember my mom comforting him by saying, he was looking at the body at the funeral or whatever, and she was telling him that's not her anymore.
Yeah.
Like, she's not there now. And to me, like, that sounded so powerful,
Right.
It's still true. I still believe it's true. She's not there now. I just
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
she's anywhere else,
Right.
You know what? I didn't think we'd take it's kind of weird we're talking about this on Easter, by the way.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Unless
He
you
was risen.
Huh? Yeah. Here's a good question. So, as a non-believer, so we're talking about memories that are tied to us from when, some of those I wasn't even a believer then, but we're talking about old memories and how we're rooted in religion a little bit anyway, and we look at things a certain way. What's something now that it can happen that gives you a moment of like deep reflection or transcendence, something that feels bigger than you and it still emotionally stirs you? Like, are there moments that still happen to you now, like any time past 30 years old, that still feel incredibly moving and almost like the same feeling you'd have as a believer, but just without the...
Well, I'm only 28, so...
Yeah. There've got to be.
It's hard to say. I mean, I still think there's, I've had family members pass away, and when I stop and I think about that, it doesn't. I'm not filled with like a spiritual sensation, but in the sense where it does really make me think about my own mortality and my own my place in everything, and so there's that kind of like that bit of sort of like stepping back and letting go into things. I mean, like, but I honestly can't think of any other thing where I've had it, what might consider like a spiritual
or like a super emotionally stirring. I guess
I
one
mean,
thing
like,
from
emotions, yeah, but I mean the like I feel like, to me, since I left Christianity, like when I was in Christianity, there was definitely that tie between emotions and this spirituality of things. Like, I remember when I was, how old was I? I must have been around 12. I was baptized, and I remember being overcome with emotion, but I equated that being overcome with emotion to being filled with the Holy Spirit, some sort of like spiritual.
Because you were taught that this was
Right,
a big.
right.
You were taught this moment was huge.
Yeah, that emotional experience I was feeling was told that's not an emotion that you're feeling. That's a spiritual feeling that you're getting.
Right.
And so
it was almost manufactured in a way too. Which
right.
Is
I mean,
scary.
it was what I was overwhelmed with was that I was there in front of a lot of people that I cared about, and they cared about me, and they were saying nice things about me, and they were talking about this is the new beginning of your life. And so I was overcome with these sort of emotions of, you're there giving the speech at your graduation, or you're there at your wedding, or something like that, where you're...
Those moments. They're almost like they're almost like, it's a cliche to say, but it's almost like if your life is a book, it's it's like the beginning of a chapter. It's like if your life's a book, there's like maybe 5 to 10 bookmarked moments through it. And when you hit one, you're like, oh, damn, this is like one of the boxes being checked right now. You know what I mean? You realize that it's moving along. I still have them, I have a really vivid memory of stuff, and I think that that's part of us being artists too. Is like, I can just think about somebody who I loved or was really close with, who's either dead or I don't talk to him and talk to him forever, and I can get so in that moment and remember it and like remember the sounds and the smells and like the place. I can still go visit the place when I go home, and it can hit me so hard it's almost like overwhelming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, damn. But then you go, damn, that's 15 years ago, or 12 years ago now. And I do have moments sometimes where it makes me aware of, like you said, your place and things, and you feel small. You feel, you know what I mean? Like at the time when that happened, you were still new. I mean, we're all still new to life. Like, we all just got here, but everything was new. Now it's like I'm becoming more reflective and like realizing I'm not at the beginning. I'm not at the very beginning of the journey anymore. But I can still like have a moment where I think about my mom or dad that really hits me. Like a certain song, a certain way, and like a memory. Like if you're driving and you hear a song he loved, which is weird because I'm in LA now, and Ohio and LA are so different. But like still, I'm driving down the freeway at 3 a.m. and Bob Seger comes on the radio, and I'm just like, damn, it's like my dad sitting next to me. You know what I mean? I have those moments. I just don't. I think a religious person has that moment and goes, he was with me on that ride.
Yeah.
And I think, well, he was in my head. But it still means something to me. It still means something to me, but I just don't. I'm not going to use that to try to justify, Sunday school being true or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not connecting those things because I just don't believe that they do. But yeah, I still have moments that are stirring, I suppose I'd say.
Yeah.
But you don't.
No, I am a robot now.
Yeah. Once you realize there was no God, you didn't give a fuck.
Right. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Nothing. Everything has lost all meaning. So whatever. I was talking to somebody, and she was saying she didn't know that I was an atheist, and then so when I told her, her response was, "Oh, I didn't know.
Sorry.
I didn't know that you didn't believe in anything."
That's right where they go. Yeah.
Yeah, and I get what
I know.
What
she means.
I get the reaction, but it's not that I don't believe in things. I believe that the universe is this vast, wonderful, beautiful place that I am so lucky and fortunate to be a part of.
You still love your brother.
Right. Yeah.
You still love your friends.
Yeah, I believe in truth and in art and discovery and in embracing this life that we have, because there may be something else afterwards, but we know for sure that this is here.
As much as we can know anything.
Yeah. As much as we can know anything, we know that this is here.
Yeah.
And
it is weird that that's how they see it, though. I used to see it that way too when I was raised religious. I saw an atheist as like, oh, come on now. What, are you crazy? You don't believe in anything?
Or you're a Satan worshiper or something.
Right,
like
or you're evil. Where do you get your morals from?
Yeah.
My intelligence and caring about people. And my grandpa told me too. I mean, my other grandpa, we were driving the Carolinas probably 8-9 years ago, and he was actually pretty left, surprisingly. He would say racist things, but for that age, he was to the left.
He was like a Biden left.
Yes, exactly right. But he would, he said to me, I was like, you believe in like religious stuff? We were talking about a lot of stuff, which is kind of cool. I miss him. And he was like, Lair, I just look around and I think there's got to be something. Yeah. And it's like there can't be a painting without a painter is kind of how they feel, or a watchmaker without a watchmaker, right? Yeah, exactly right. And I look around and think there's got to be something, and I just don't think there's going to be something magical or supernatural. Like it's still beautiful without that. I don't mean to sound ironic, but when people say to you, how do you not believe in anything? And you said, I believe in truth, or you think those things. I believe that believers can feel just as strongly as I do, for sure. But for speaking for myself, truth and like friendship and people taking care of each other, those things became more meaningful to me when I didn't think there was a heaven anymore. Yeah. Or I didn't think there was an overseeing judge of all things who was making sure everything worked out for everyone, right? Once that was stripped away and it's like, well, this is all we got, and then it's over, like those things kind of meant more. And I was more impressed by the humans who reached for those things without a promise of a reward. Right. I saw them as much more heroic than like someone who thinks they're doing what they were told by their master. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because in a lot of religions, truth is a very easy answer to come to. The truth is that God is there, and Jesus has died and risen for your sins, and you are sinful, and you need to repent and go to heaven. That's the truth that's there. There's nothing to discover. It's there.
You can discover things. I think
gray area about
I've seen religious people, like leaders in debates and stuff, be told there's nothing to discover, and they go, no, there's still stuff to discover, but it's all within. They don't like to hear that.
Right.
There's plenty to discover, but it was all made by God. Just know that whatever you find, the ending is still the same. Like the answer is still the same, but you can look around in his Minecraft world he's created for you to explore.
Right.
But just remember that he made it. And if it ever looks like he didn't, trust me, he did.
Yeah. But as far as the sort of the big questions
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. All those answers are already there. We already have.
Yes.
We already have all
The
that
existential
stuff.
answers are
Right.
all there.
Yeah. And that's the comforting thing is that
For
I can just
sure,
go
it's
on with my
comforting.
I can go on with
Absolutely.
my life, doing whatever my thing is, and I don't have to worry about those things because that answer's already been found for us.
I saw an old, this was probably 12 years ago, I saw an old debate between Christopher Hitchens, who's dead now, Richard Dawkins. Or it wasn't a debate, they were all just like having a roundtable thing. Those two, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Dan Dennett, if you remember who Dan Dennett is.
I know Dennett, yeah.
And they posed the question, what if you could make one thing, like one truth, if there's one truth that you hope mankind never discovers, what would it be? Like, what truth would you choose?
That's interesting.
And they were like, well, the obvious answer would be like the formula to some mass destructive weapon, but
Sure.
but I mean, really, I mean, you could, it depends on when he discovers it, or she. It could be at a point where we're not violent anymore. And we discover that's not. I wouldn't hide that. But I don't remember that they had any real answers. Like, they were all kind of seemed stumped. They were intrigued by the question. I don't know if there's anything that I would keep. Like, if there's one thing you hope man never learns.
Right.
Like, if he learns. I suppose if there were like a reality where when we die, we all go to hell.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to tell people that. I guess.
Yeah,
Maybe I don't know. I would have a. That would
yeah.
make things bleak.
That human flesh is actually very tasty.
Yeah, that,
I don't people know
that
that.
once you have one bite, you realize like everyone's been missing out. Like he's fucking going crazy. It's been around us the whole time.
Right. It's fucking delicious. Oh my god.
I can't think of any one, but that would probably be a good one. No, that one bite of human flesh is irresistibly. You will do whatever it takes to have another. I would probably keep that one out. Yeah, that's a good one. If that were true.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's find out. That's fun. This is just track down a homeless guy outside after this.
I don't know. That's a dangerous time. You might have a corona or something,
For sure. I haven't read much about that. Do you think it's riddling, or do you think it's like homeless people got to be riddled with this right now, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean,
and then not getting the medical attention they would need. Most
there's
likely.
got to be a certain upside to the social distancing. They're not coming into contact with a lot of people,
right?
L.A. and everywhere else has a high homeless population. People, are living compromised immune systems and maybe not as well nourished and things like that. So obviously at risk, and their hygiene is compromised, things like that. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole problem with this sort of pandemic and a healthcare system that we have that's privatized and profit motive is there's no financial incentive to help people.
No, there's not. And this has been said a million times, and I am severely disappointed in anybody still trying to defend the old ways.
Yeah.
But has this not shown us for how vulnerable and full of shit our system was?
Yeah.
I mean, the healthcare. I mean, the believing. But just believe whatever you want to, man. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk about science. It's like, no. If we'd all understood and listened to experts, this could have been prevented. You know what I mean? Like, just all of these mindsets we were conditioned to embrace. Like, I think the healthcare is the biggest one. Our healthcare system has just completely been caught off guard.
Well, even Trump.
Free market. We talk about the free market shit.
Yeah. Even Trump was recently talking about expanding Medicare for a short period of time to cover everybody who needs it.
Right. They'll take just as much socialism as they need to keep things afloat, and then go back to hating it again.
Yeah. Or just take it and then just still use the big nasty S word to scare people.
Yeah, it's been such a strange time. I mean, not every. There are moments. Do you have any kind of panic deep down, or no?
About what?
About all of this. I mean, I went to the grocery store today. Yesterday I went running and went to the grocery store, and I'm standing in line, and I'm just outside, and they're letting us in like groups of 3, and I'm just like, I'm huffing and puffing because I was just running, and I'm putting on my mask. Everybody's wearing a mask everywhere I look, and I'm like, what is going on right now? And then the streets are empty, like, it just feels like we're in a dream, dude.
Yeah, for sure. And I was driving, I was driving down Hollywood Boulevard,
which he
Friday.
lives on for context. No joke.
yeah,
If I step, I'm looking at it right now out the window.
Please just tell everybody my address.
They're outside waving at us.
I was driving down Hollywood Boulevard at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday. There was nobody out. I was just cruising down, like never, and it's this sort of surreal, like, am I in this like zombie movie where, like, you feel the sort of impending thing, and you see the scenes where people are getting bitten by the zombies, and then there's people in the hospitals, and then there's people who are up in their high rise. No, nothing's going on. It's just blown over, and they're just they're playing music as the Titanic is sinking. It's like, I'm not worried that the pandemic of the coronavirus is gonna kill a lot of people. I mean, it could potentially kill about 3 million Americans if it was just let loose. But I mean, the sort of economic.
What's that right now? How many is it killed now?
It's in the thousands now. It's
high thousands now, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly.
I think we just beat Italy, actually.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how many, but based on
Trump, you fucking idiot.
based on estimates, if it was just let loose and like nearly 100% of the population was infected, it would, based on the death rate percentages, we would be looking somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 million, people dead, and that would be just from the coronavirus. And you think about if that many people are dying from that, who people who have other conditions aren't able to get the health care, and doctors are dying, and nurses are dying, and businesses are going out, and people can't get resources because so and so's died in their business. There's so many different ramifications from that. But what kind of, like, not to like boil it down to the economics, but what would happen in a sort of an economic devastation that we would be left in.
Do you think we have a depression coming right now?
I mean, technically, we're in one right now.
I think we do. I think it's going to be way worse than most people understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say how long this goes on for, and what
What a crazy time.
I mean, we've got the stimulus money coming, and that's going to kind of keep things kind of going. But like, I'm not paying my rent. I didn't pay my rent for April, and I'm not gonna pay my rent until the lockdown is over. I'm gonna save my money, and I intend to make every effort to pay my rent, when everything ends. But in the meantime, I mean, I'm sitting here, like, I need to save money for food, and the worst case scenario that I get the coronavirus and I have to get medical care, and it costs me, how $10,000 or something to go to Kaiser and get treated for it because I'm in intensive care or some shit like that, right?
Well, I was, you're right though. Before I came here, I drove around for an hour just because I could, and I wanted to just get out for a minute. I drove past your place. I drove around like Farmers Market, just driving, listening to music, thinking, and I was just like, man, you can't do this when LA is busy, Like, it felt nice, but I was like, it was just like surreal. I mean, it's fucking bizarro, man.
Yeah.
I'm really worried. As you were talking, my mind went to anybody who's suffering from mental illness and who's alone right now. My mind went to the elderly who have to be alone right now, and like, if you know people, and I don't mean to sound like a goody two shoes, but if you know people who maybe don't do well in isolation or alone or need checked on, like, check in on them, even by phone call, text, whatever, because this can't be good for people. Because I feel like a healthy-minded, healthy guy who's pretty young, and like, I'm stressing out, and I'm like, man, what about somebody who's what about some recent widow who's 70 by herself right now? What a horrible time to just not be allowed to be around your family, or this is harder on people than I think we see directly. And
there's a part of me that, like, as a writer, I'm like, oh, well, I'm gonna sit at home and write, and I still end up getting distracted, but it's there's where I can look at the upsides of it, sort of like, okay, now I've got all this time, but for a lot of people who don't have that, for sure. I mean, I could see where this is really taxing and stressful and things like that. But
I made I didn't plan on bringing this up, but as Scotty helped me shoot the first episode of a goofy, really dark,
self-promotion time,
really dark comedy web series called Vulgar Fantastico. And I just put it on YouTube, and it's super dark, But it's been like therapeutic. It's what you're talking about. Like we have time to write. I'm like, man, I have time. I could do this thing. So I'm gonna try to put them out like about every week. And it's really dark humor. You know, I'm really proud of it actually.
Yeah.
But it's like you're saying, it's the positive side of things, and it's nice, but it only goes so far.
Right.
Like so, this thing's keeping me stimulated, but that's about the extent of its utility.
Right.
And after that, underneath all that, I'm still like, okay, cool, yeah, I have time to write and make stuff, but like, can we have the world back now? You know what I mean? Like the first week, you're like, oh, I can do whatever, and now you're like, I kind of want businesses to go back open and to see people, and I want to go hiking.
Yeah.
I want to go into the mountains. I want the world back now.
Yeah.
You know, not selfishly, but just for our own health and well-being.
Yeah.
But we got to hang in there. I mean, I don't think it's going to be opening anytime soon. Where are we at now? May, are they saying?
At least the end of May.
Yeah.
At least, you know.
Yeah. We can do it. We got to do it. But man, this.
I mean, yeah. I mean, because
fun.
because the alternatives are, you know,
Right.
like I said, you know,
Right.
3 million people, at least, you know, and that, I mean, that's going to devastate the economy as well.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
If you just like, okay, everybody go back to work now,
Right.
and you know the project, and it could be like, it could happen as fast and be as intense as like, you know, 100,000 people dying a day.
Right.
It could if
Brutal.
if it's complete
terrifying.
if it's complete
Just
infection.
let
Yeah.
like loose.
Yeah. I mean, and there's no way like our healthcare system could handle that. Like you've got people who
no.
die because they couldn't get the care. If there are fewer people infected, at least there are people who are surviving because they can get care. But if the hospitals are overrun,
Right.
there's people who are not going to get care.
We're like running alongside it right now, but we
Right,
would never
yeah.
be able to keep up with it.
Yeah, and so lots more people would die, and then like I said, people with other ailments, things completely unrelated, just regular pneumonia or cancer or you know
Because
heart
the line's
attacks
getting
or-
longer.
Right.
My regional VP and I were talking at my company, and he said that it's estimated that for every day we're down, it'll take 6 days to recover economically
Yeah.
for the country.
Well,
which is,
I mean, we can almost assume that we've lost a year of GDP.
yeah,
In that sense that we've
Yeah.
lost a year of economic. But I mean,
man,
it won't really take that long to recover, give or take. You know, I mean, it all depends on, you know, how many businesses can't be put on hold and come back. So, like, you know,
yeah.
AMC Theater is going bankrupt.
yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I'm
Gonna be a lot of empty buildings, man.
Yeah, but I'm sure,
A
you know,
lot.
other companies are going to come in
I
and
know,
buy them up.
and that's the upside. The upside
you
is
know?
it's like when a forest burns down, another one comes in. But my heart breaks for the trees, the people now who are losing their businesses after 30 years
Yeah.
through this shit. You know, yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of new business perks and packages the government offers people to kind of get the growth going back again. Whether it's from the country or state by state, I'm sure we're all going to be pitching in to try to you know, get things alive and well again.
A lot of GoFundMe campaigns.
Yeah, it's a crazy time though, and
Yeah.
it's really. I don't think we fathomed how devastating this would be or will be, and I'm glad we didn't. Maybe there's the answer to that question.
Right.
If there's something you wouldn't want people to know, maybe it's not that let's take an example like a pandemic or something that's going to kill a lot of people.
Right.
If we'd have known about this, bam, just like on March 1st, we found out all at once, it probably would have been mass hysteria, or let's say February 1st.
Right.
Instead, we learned how severe it was week by week. So
Right.
it was like, okay, groups of 100. Okay, now groups of 50. Now groups of 10.
Yeah.
Now put on masks. Now you have to put on masks. Maybe it's not about what would you not have people know. Maybe it's about at what speed would you have them learn it
Right.
for their mental ability to fathom it and react.
Right. I mean, because
reasonably.
I mean, already people were, you know, hoarding toilet paper and stuff like that.
Right.
It's just like if everybody went out simultaneously and said, "Oh, I need to stock up on
Right.
everything." You know, people, you know, getting into fights at the store. I mean, there were already videos of that, but I mean, it could have gotten a lot worse. It could
Maybe-
be, you know, it could be looting and people showing up with guns and you know that
Right.
kind of stuff. Which is that to me is like the semi plausible worst case scenario for me is the sort of, vigilantes and people on the streets with guns and,
Right.
the sort of that
I think
sort
we
of
would have
thing.
seen more of that if it would have been all one big change at once on
Right,
like one day.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess sticking on my question, I think mankind is probably capable of knowing anything, but it's at what rate should he learn it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I was afraid. I think looking back, I'm glad we've eased into this pandemic and quarantine as opposed to jumping in. I think jumping in would have been worse.
It definitely could have been, psychologically.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking completely psychologically. Yeah.
Obviously, from an efficiency standpoint, in the sense of stopping the spread of the virus, it would have been more effective if you just everybody go home. But
the downside would have been scary.
You can't have
riots or
300 million Americans, all doing the logical, rational, and respectful thing.
Well, you can't flip.
Be crazy,
you can't flip places like L.A. and New York on and off like a switch either.
Right.
You just don't go, okay, bam, we're closed now. It's like what the everything. You just burned your city down. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, it's crazy.
So Vulgar Fantastico, people can go check that out.
Yeah, Vulgar Space Fantastico. I'm working on episode 2 right now.
It's on the YouTubes.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, look it up. Just episode 1. I'm gonna. The thing is, if you guys check it out, I would love if people share it. Because right now, as you know, like media companies are down, so I don't know where to send like a press release. I'm gonna have one made, once to get this rolling. So I don't know how to get more likes on this or hits on it.
Yeah.
Like when we used to do series maybe 5 or 10 years ago, or animation or whatever, it was easier because you would just send it to a million people. I'm like, I don't know who's even looking at this right now.
You just tweet it to a lot of people now. Just find people who might like it and just tweet it to them.
Are you joking? Or are you serious?
No, I'm serious.
Okay. Yeah. I'll do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Vulgar Fantastico. It has animation. It has a puppet from, shadowcircus.com. Check out that website. This guy makes these amazing puppets, like creepy stuff. And then our buddy, voice actor of Donald Duck. Well, he always loves when I give him a little intro. But Daniel Ross did a really fun voice in it. We have an animation, some cartoon work. It's great. It's dark, and I'm really proud of it.
Cool. Well, thanks all for joining in to another episode of the Old Fashioned Hollywood Podcast, keeping Hollywood going since 2018.
Yeah, be safe, people.
Yeah, and cheers.